Jillian here. Welcome to another episode of Winning Insights, a bonus series of the Ride podcast. This episode is brought to you by Warwick Schiller Attuned Horsemanship. In this 4-part series, Warwick will give quick training tips in each episode that'll help you build a better relationship with your horse. And if you want to learn even more from Warwick, enter our giveaway for a chance to win a free year-long subscription to Warwick Schiller Attuned Horsemanship video library. There will be 3 lucky winners, so check the show notes for details and visit horseandrider.com for more information. Let's get into the episode.
G'day everyone, I'm Warwick Schiller and this is the Winning Insights podcast for Horse and Rider magazine. In this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about the idea of only asking your horse yes questions. I think that good horse trainers only ask their horses yes questions, and that's how they can create a well-trained horse that is mentally receptive to the training. And in this episode, I want to break down what I think are the 3 different types of only asking yes questions. And the first one would be, this is one that probably happens the most during training, and that is the horse does not know the answer to the question, but they can figure it out. And that's when you've got some foundation on your horse and you want to teach them something else. They don't know the answer to the question you've asked them, but they can figure it out. Like a very good example of this might be if you've got a young horse and he's really responsive to your left rein. When you can say, standing still, you could maybe laterally flex him to the left. When you're walking, you can steer him with a direct rein to the left. And when you steer him, his body bends nicely around to the left. He bends his ribs and he steps his inside hind foot up underneath him. And he does the same thing on the right. At the walk, trot, and the canter, every time you pick up on either rein and in a steer and a direct rein, they bend their body, bend their ribs, and step their inside hind foot up underneath them. So now you have a rein, rib cage, hind foot connection off of either rein separately. So they know how to do both of those. When you first start teaching them to back up, if your horse knows that much, they don't know how to back up off of 2 reins yet. But because they're responsive to the rein off the left rein, and it's not just their head they're responsive with their body. If you can do that off your left rein and your right rein, when you go to teach them to back up, you can just pick up on both reins and they kind of go, I'm not sure what to do, but it seems like I should do this. And they'll shorten their body, they'll shift their weight back, they'll rock their weight back, and you can release right there. So that is the most common, I think that's the most common type of only asking yes questions, because that's how you train horses. That happens in everyday training, and all good horse trainers have a process, and what the process does is it provides the answer to the next question in the foundation that you're putting on right now. And so if you can remember to do that, and I can't explain how to do all those processes in this short podcast here, but I can give you the idea that that's one of the examples of only asking yes questions. Now, the next example of only asking yes questions is when your horse actually knows the answer to what you're asking. That's pretty simple. Your horse knows how to do something, you ask him to do it, and he can do it. That one doesn't need a lot of explanation, but the next one, the one that's closely related to that, and this is the one I see a lot of people at home, like your non-pros, amateurs, that sort of thing, struggle with from time to time, is when their horse knows the answer. So that the third type of yes question is your horse knows the answer and is capable of giving you that answer given their current mental state and the current state of the environment that they're in. And this is one where I see people get really frustrated with their horses because he could do it yesterday, why can't he do it today? And people tend to, can get mad, can get frustrated, can get upset with their horses in these situations. And what you have to be able to do, you have to be a good judge of your horse's mental state and the environment. It might be a cold, windy day. If you're in Texas where they have bipolar weather and it was 83 yesterday and today it's 33 and the wind is blowing, and you've got to, and it's not saying you cannot ask your horse to do that thing on that day, if it was, say, the weather, but you might want to ask him something a bit simpler or whatever first. You know what I mean there? You know, your horse might need a bit of turnout before you start riding him, whatever it is. But you've just got to be able to read your horse's mental state at the time and forget the fact, yes, he could do it yesterday. And if he wasn't upset, you know, you've got to be able to forget the fact he could do it yesterday. You've got to think, well, he knows how to do it. So that's not the problem. The problem is he's too upset about whatever it is. Something's bothering him, and that's why he can't do it. And so you have to really think about, okay, what's going on here, and what can I do to turn this into a yes question? Maybe I can ask a different yes question. But that's probably the most common one. I think people, like I said, or even some professional horse trainers too, struggle with being frustrated with a horse, and that's where you've got to be able to read your horse, or like they say in human terms these days, you've got to read the room. Okay, you've got to be able to make sure that your horse is capable of doing that thing at that point in time, even though they already know it. So I'm going to recap again. So the three different types of these yes questions is, one is they don't know the answer to the question, but they know how to figure it out. You know, so that's, like I said, that's mostly what happens in training. When you get your horse to a certain level, when you're ready to go to the next level, they don't know the answer to this next question, but they've got enough basics to figure it out. And if you wanted to give it a human example, think about a child who can count, but they can't add yet, but they can count well. And if you held up four fingers and said, okay, if you held up two fingers on one hand and two fingers on the other hand, and you said, okay, can you add those two together? And they go, no. And I said, well, can you count them? And they go, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is a yes answer to it. You know, you just might change the question a little bit, but that's the most common one, and that's what good trainers do in their process training horses. The second one is the easiest one, which is they know how to do it, and they can do it right now, and they just do what you ask. And then, like I said, the third one is the one that most people get frustrated with. Like, he knows how to do this. Why can't he do it? You know what I mean? And it's a little bit like, I read a book recently on, it's about how your brain functions. And there was kind of two parts to your brain. One part that works just completely just automatically, you know, subconsciously sort of thing. And then there is another part that has to think through things. And so they gave an example of a math thing. It was like, what's 27 times 42? And if you sat there and figured it out and thought about it and concentrated on it, you could actually do it. Okay, most people could figure that out. But they said if you asked somebody to do that while they were driving their, let's go with a truck and horse trailer, and you were at an intersection and it was a busy intersection and you were trying to find a gap in the traffic to be able to get through this intersection and turned onto the next road with your horse trailer, you would not be able to do it then. So it's a yes question, but right at that very moment, while you're paying attention to the traffic coming from this direction, the traffic coming from this direction, all that sort of stuff, you could not do it at that point in time, even though you could in a different circumstance. So that's probably a good human example of that. And like I said, that's the one that people get frustrated with. And you just remember that you've got to work with the horse you have today, or work with the horse you have right now, what's going on underneath you, and forget the fact he could do it yesterday or half an hour ago, and really just be aware of your surroundings, and especially your horse's mental state. A lot of times, people can get really upset with their horse for apparently refusing to do something they know how to do, but the surroundings might be dictating that they can't do it at that point in time. So I hope that gives you guys something to think about with your horses, and about only asking your horses yes questions. And so I'll catch you on the next episode of the Horse and Rider Winning Insights.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Ride Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com.
If you guys have any questions or comments, Please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys.
And if you like what you're listening to, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.